Video is a continuation from the previous. Okay, so now that we've talked about everything that goes into character development, it's clear that developing a character is not something you just do a little sketch on a napkin and there's your character. You really develop the character as you would someone real, right? Think about yourself. You have had this whole experience in your life that has made you who you are. And those experiences drive your personality, drive the decisions you make, drive the things that you do. In order to create successful, memorable, long-lasting characters, which is the question we asked at the beginning, you need to invest time and effort into developing your characters. You start with an analogy, a story, and then you can have influences. And all of those things allow you to fully develop. And I mean, I think it's a good analogy to say give birth to your character, raise your character, and then you know who your character is. And it makes it very easy at that point to assign personality, decisions, what your characters look like, how they act. And you can see that what ends up happening when you develop these really strong, great characters is that people fall in love with them and people want to know more about them. That's the reason there are so many different movies made about the Joker. He is a character that people relate to on some level, or in some level, that they want to see more, and different ways of him being represented. It's also why sequels and prequels are made, why we can't get enough of some characters. And it's because somebody invested in giving birth, to use an analogy, raising these characters and truly devoting time and effort into developing them. The more you do in what we've covered in the previous videos to develop your characters, the more you're going to have characters that are enduring, long-lasting, and people want to see and people connect to. Okay? So, your beginning. Let's develop your story and your character. And I'm going to show you some steps for doing that now. Start with your story. Pick a story from your own life to use as an influence to turning yourself into a comic book or video game character. No one can do you better than you. And once you do yourself, if you start with yourself, make yourself into a character, the next character you create will come easier. The easiest one to start with is to characterize yourself, because you know yourself. And then once you have gone through that process and turned yourself into an animated character, you will then be able to do it again with another character. Okay? So start with yourself, apply your analogy. How did that experience that you picked, that story that you're telling, make you stronger? What new attributes did it give you? Okay? Now, let's turn those attributes into a character by exaggerating and minimizing them, as we have seen done with other characters that we looked at, such as Chicken Trooper and Sonic the Hedgehog. Take these characteristics, exaggerate and minimize to your attributes in order to start to create your own character. Now you need to start sketching out your thumbnails. And these are some ideas of how to do that. The easiest way to start sketching is to just start with basic geometry and then start to fill it out and then add detail. Okay, for instance, here, basically a head and a line, and then we start to fill out with other shapes until we add more detail and get the basis of our character. just starting out with some basic shapes. Now, for two-dimensional characters, these are just two-dimensional shapes. For 3D, we can sketch 3D shapes and then begin to fill out around those shapes. So gesture drawings, starting with sticks and then adding bulk, is a way we can begin to sketch out our characters. And then we can come around in the end and start to fill out around the skeleton. And just replace body parts with basic geometric shapes. In this case, we're using cylinders, boxes, spheres, and use those to begin to create the three-dimensional body parts. Makes it a whole lot easier to end up creating and filling in the flesh. Okay, so NBC Sports decided that they were going to create a video game, Marvel Comics, based on Kobe Bryant, and it never happened. But this was the concept. Kobe Bryant said, "That's what I do. It's like superheroes. Superman can fly. Spider-Man has webs. Steve can pass. I shoot. I get him up. I make no bones about it. That's what I do. That's what I do. Some nights they fall, some nights they don't. But Rodman was a rebounder, Coop was a defender, and I'm a shooter." Okay? So, obviously, the superhero analogy that he referred to here was made as a joke. It's still a brilliant comparison. It's the analogy. Kobe Bryant turned himself into an analogy. He's a shooter. So, that's a superpower. Superpowers are great, but they're also curses. And so the superhero stories are also centered on the struggle to deal with the burdens and the consequences of those powers. Now, ESPN did this sketch. Here's Kobe with his hand that has the different, it's like the mechanical hand that has the different buttons that you push for different superpowers. And they created this super character based on Kobe's quote. Okay. And that's kind of what I want you guys to start to do with your characters. Start with yourself, turn yourself into a character, right? What are your superpowers? What is your analogy? What is your story? What is your experience? And then once you've done that for yourself, now you want to start doing that with your characters as you develop them. And when you do, they will become long-lasting, endearing, and substantial characters that people will relate to and they'll want to know more about. And someone did this sketch. I didn't do this sketch, but it just sort of fit. If I were a superhero instructor, what might that look like? And someone has kind of created a little sketch. Okay, so what would you be? What's your superpower? What kind of superhero would you be? And then use that experience of turning yourself into a character to then shape how you create all your characters in your animations. And the resultant from that will be that you will have characters that people relate to, want to know about, and your animations will become superheroes themselves. Okay, we're going to stop this character development series here and move now next into working with the software.